Ready. I think everyone saw the news. It's been Devon Dampier News Day. He got Mountain West Player of the Week. He was named to the Davy O'Brien Grade 8 Award, which the winner comes out tomorrow. The Manning Stars of the Week 8. That winner comes out on Wednesday, and probably the biggest, since I've been here, certainly the biggest weekly award. He was named the Associated Press Offensive National Player of the Week. So that covers offense, defense, and all of FBS. With that, the Lobos don't have they're not off this week. They just don't have a football game this week because there's no off right now. With that, Coach Mendenhall.
Okay, so after hearing all the stuff about Devon, it's deserved. I don't think that there's a player in college football doing more for his team than Devon Dampier is doing for the University of New Mexico. And I don't care what level, what team, etc. He's remarkable. He's playing really well, and glad that the rest of the world is now understanding that. It's great for him, great for our program, and it's accurate. So any of those awards that he's up for, yeah, if he doesn't get them, that's probably an upset as far as I'm concerned.
One sequence that kind of got swept up in all the excitement after Saturday's game. Were you surprised that they didn't call a timeout during that final sequence, or that they didn't burn one of their two?
Yeah, I'm not sure I was surprised. I was being aware, but not surprised. And it's hard to ever know for sure what an opposing coach is thinking and doing. But yeah, they're really skilled and they have a good team. So not sure.
And then earlier in the season, you kind of talked about how before you had kind of skewed the idea of 3 buys a little bit more towards the negative and all that too. On a 2-game win streak right now, are you kind of like chomping at the bit, I wish we were playing a football game this week with all this momentum, or, hey, we need to get healthy heading into this last one?
Yeah, I think that at one point it would be 3 is too many. As the season has played out and as our first year has played out and as I've seen the buys come when they've come, I think it's worked out really well. I never thought I would say that. I never thought I'd be on record for saying that. Having only had 1 bye ever in my career per season. But this one is coming at a really good time again for getting the health of our team restored as far as we can. And quite frankly, anytime you go to Hawaii, man, if you got extra time, because it really is like the equivalent of playing on a Friday, just because your travel is altered. And so the way that it's made most sense for me in terms of planning and for the teams that I've coached to make that trip is you really plan on 1 less day. And if you do that, you're normally appropriately prepared. If you treat it like you're still playing on Saturday, you're usually short a day just because of the way the travel and the impact that has on you. So that we have a bye week, I think helps address that really well.
Coach, I know you spoke to Devon's performance and how much he means to this team, but I'm just curious from your point of view, his progression, not only on the field, but just as a leader. Like, what other attributes are you seeing out of him to the growth?
Yeah, he's growing as a leader, but he already started strong. He's poised. He's a great decision maker. He is consistent. There's been very few games this year, and I know sometimes we point to a possible mistake here or there. As the volume continues to shift, the volume of plays continues to shift to go through Devon, the team continues to excel. Earlier in the year, there is significant risk where the more volume the quarterback handles, and I'm now talking especially in the run game, the more hits he takes and the more your team is at risk. I think as you've seen as the season has gone on and the closer we get to the end and the more meaningful the games are becoming, even though they're all meaningful, more and more plays go to Devon. And with that, the team continues to grow, progress, and improve. And so he's handling it really well, not only the volume of decisions, but the volume of plays with the consistency necessary to lead our team. So he's doing exceptionally well.
After the win, you remarked on belief, and I think that's something even I've seen from practice, even when it was an 0-4 team. Is there a moment or time that you can reference when you said, despite not getting the results yet, this is a team that believes and the results will come?
Yeah, I'm not sure there has been a moment, but what I do know there's been, I'm not sure I can think of a moment where they didn't. maybe that's the better way to put it, meaning that each practice, each day, even with an 0-4 start, I don't remember coming off the field and saying, we've lost them, or I don't see their desire. I mean, they've worked every single day. And that's cliche, but it's actually truthful here. This team just is resilient, and they're consistent, and they have worked in a manner that has reflected belief. They've worked in a manner that's reflected hope on the way to belief the entire season. And it's played out exactly as they've worked for it to play out. And so they've been really consistent in their preparation, which I think, rather than a moment, I think that entire thing has reflected hope and belief throughout.
Is there anything in specific you'd attribute that to? Is it just the personnel? Is it the culture?
It's a really good question. I'm not sure. I think that there might be a number of contributing factors. I think that there was initial belief, and they gave me the benefit of the doubt, that the history of the head coach and the winning and the success postseason, I think they matter-of-factly just accepted that. And they checked that box pretty early. With checking that box came the processes of what is going to come from that leadership. And I think they checked that box pretty early. So just matter-of-factly, I think they accepted, possibly if we do what's being asked, this could work. And so I think it started from there. And then as they saw the amount of work, even though it was unsupported by results early on, as you mentioned earlier, there's a choice period in there, and they kept working through that. That, to me, was and is the pivotal moment of a transformation. And without that, the transformation doesn't happen, or it's way slower. And so I think there were some matter-of-fact things that were just bluntly accepted even before they truly were seen. And then the player leadership and the work ethic together has then led to that whole process now starting to yield over time.
Coach, you mentioned you wanted to keep Devon to about 10 carries, earlier in the season, but he had 28 carries for 193 yards and 3 touchdowns. Can you talk a little bit about how his carries have increased over the season? He's also been able to stay healthy. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think we and Jason, Coach Beck, have managed it really well. As I mentioned earlier, number of touches on the quarterback early in the season, the risk is really high. And so what if Devon doesn't play in game 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? This run that we're making does not happen. So we've calculatedly and intentionally built the volume as it's gone. The closer it is to the end, the more the volume. And that gives you meaningful runs and meaningful games down the stretch without significant succession planning at quarterback yet in our program, right? Because there isn't another Devon. I love our backup quarterbacks, but they're not Devon. And so number 18 team in the country coming in as we're establishing home field advantage and transforming a program, 10 touches is not going to do it. It's going to take however many touches it takes for us to win, and that's what happened.
Coach, any comments on the defense? It seemed, watching the defense, they just seemed like they were playing at a different level. Obviously, the team is really good when they're balanced. Bryce Santana, your skill guys, early in the first half, they give up a few big plays, passing plays. Second half, not so much. There's just something, it's like they've stepped it up. Is that players who were injured stepping in? I mean, what can you account for that?
Well, there's a lot of different things. The team was told early in the week that Washington State is dynamic, explosive, and especially early and hard to keep up with. And if you weather the initial storm, you'll eventually keep playing and catch up. And then it'll come down to the last drive. And that's exactly what happened. So we weathered the initial storm. It didn't look great. They threw and caught the ball really well, some big plays. And then they had a hard at the same time, they were defending us really well. So they had significant yardage and points. We did not have significant yardage and points. In the second half, the script flipped exactly. We had significant yardage and points, and they didn't. That's what we were prepared for. So Coach Howell and the defensive players and coaches did a really nice job of adjusting less radically than anyone thinks. A tweak here or there, a mindset change here or there, and getting off the field on third down changed the game. And the defensive kids deserve credit for that. They're tough and they're resilient, and they played really well the second half and gave us a chance to win.
In the context of this defense, how often have you kind of pitched that? Hey, if we weather the initial storm, we'll be okay in the end. How is it only been this game?
Only this game. The comparison I made when I was coaching at BYU and Boise State was having a really strong era. I started with Chris Peterson. Their approach, especially if you played at Boise, man, the first quarter, you had to weather the first quarter, and there was unique eye control plays and concentration plays and reverse plays and fake punts and every possible thing to get you defeated before the game reached the second quarter. Not to the same extent, but Washington State, in my evaluation, played similarly in terms of their execution, their quarterback, the scrambling, the downfield plays, the reverses, the double passes, anything that might happen, knowing that that's what was going to happen. Then when it does, the team isn't surprised, and it's like, oh, this is what we said. That actually builds confidence while it's happening, even if you're not playing it well. And so that message was specific for this game, this opponent, because of how they played.
And I hate to keep, pulling for comparisons and all that too, but, when you do talk about Devon and, just the amount of plays that are going for him, and he's the quarterback, unless it's Wildcat, he's touching the ball on every play, but the amount that are just running through him and all of that. I mean, for a first-year starter, have you had a guy in the past that has been able to kind of take on that, that high of a workload?
Close with Bryce Perkins at the University of Virginia. And I can't compare volume for volume or give you exact percentage points, but similar. Taysom Hill at BYU, different because of injury, and he struggled to maintain or sustain that. He had, some really hard injuries early on. And so at this stage, meaning true sophomore with this volume, pretty remarkable. And really difficult for defenses to stay ahead of the chains, meaning to prevent our efficiency when quarterback runs are happening at the level they are. And if you choose to use the extra numbers, pass game and perimeter runs become a challenge, as we've seen. And so I think we're managing it really well for where we are in the season, for what we're working to accomplish, and it's taking us all the way down to the very last game with still more to play for. And that's really, I think, rewarding.
Coach, you've talked over the course of the season about comparisons to your first year at Virginia, and the start here was similar in terms of the difficulty out the gate, then a couple of wins. At Virginia, it finished with 7 straight losses. This year's team has gone the other direction from 3-6. Why do you think that is?
Lots. We've already talked about our quarterback, but the collective belief, execution, consistency of work, I think from beginning to end is pretty remarkable. And I really believed in my first year at Virginia, that would have been year 2 at Virginia, which is we made it to postseason. Fans stormed the field after we beat Georgia Tech, and the stadium wasn't full then either, but the fans that were there stormed the field, and it was a remarkable day. I thought that would have been year 1 at Virginia. And so, yeah, possibly now, after moving toward the end of this season, possibly year 1 at UNM is year 2 at Virginia. That comparison could end up being more accurate than my previous one. And yeah, I'm not immune to being wrong.
You didn't outright say it when you made the comparison to that Georgia Tech game on Saturday night too, but did Saturday kind of feel like a turning point for the program in a kind of macro sense?
I don't know if turning point is the word, but it felt significant. And sometimes when players are trying to move on to the NFL, scouts or GMs will be talking about signature plays. And so here's their volume of work for an entire season. And then there'll be signature plays that somehow seem to define them in addition to all the consistency of volume. Then they point to 1, 2, or 3 plays of an entire year, like that defines that player. Human nature, maybe. So I think that game and that win versus that opponent at this time ends up being a signature game for this program and this era. Whether that's defining or turning point, I think we'll find out later. But I think at this point, certainly meaningful.
You've never, given us the impression that external validation means anything too. But
That was really tactfully said.
thank you. But I mean, you've been doing this a long time, and still, that's a hugely significant win. I mean, were a lot of people calling, texting, you reaching out to you? How was that kind of playing out, either in the immediate aftermath or yesterday?
Yeah. I spent this morning, I didn't answer any texts until this morning, and it took me about an hour and a half, probably. And I think that there's just many from former players, for sure, from former players, but meaningful texts from a lot of different people that were just happy, I think, for our players, happy for our community, happy for this institution, happy for our staff. And the significance of all that wasn't lost on them, who have been through transformations before, and they're harder, not easier, and they're more meaningful. And I think what they've sensed just from the feedback is that there's nothing kind of superficial or pretend going on here. These are people that really care about each other, coaches and players and each other. And they're grasping that. Somehow that's coming through to them, even though they're around the country. And I think they genuinely appreciate seeing that. It doesn't seem like a commodity. It doesn't seem like it's entertainment. It seems like these are real people, arm in arm, trying to forge and do something remarkable. And that's kind of the tone of what is coming through, rather than just great win. And I think that's been striking. And in doing it a long time, the ones that are the hardest seem to be the ones I remember the most. Also, the ones that hurt the most, I remember the most. This is certainly one I'm going to remember, and I can't give you a ranking, but it's toward the top.
Kind of obligatory. I mean, you touched on it, the first couple bye weeks and all that too. Do you have a kind of plan for this bye week in terms of the scheduling?
Initial plan that I won't be held to. So our coaches are recruiting currently, the majority. We have a large official visit this weekend, as we have plenty to do in terms of still working on our program and our roster. Thursday will be our first practice day. Friday morning will be our second practice day. Players will have the weekend off. Monday will be the equivalent of a Tuesday, like you'd be playing on a Friday. If you followed all that, then everything moves up. And so we will have stolen 2 extra days in preparation for one game less, like we were playing on Friday, which we're playing on Saturday, but we're acting like Friday, but stealing an extra day in the bye week. That came across really smoothly, didn't it? You guys, I saw you following. That's all right, great. Ready, break.